Hello everyone, my name is Ryan from Turtle Soup Media. We're here in Oceanside, California at the Comic Stronghold with Andrew Pinkard promoting his new comic book, Shonen Punks. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Doing great. Super excited to be here. This is your first in-store book signing that you've done, correct?
Yes, it's the first one ever.
What other events have you had a booth or table at?
I usually do LA Comic Con. I've done it for the last 2 or 3 years, I think. It was the first time I've ever done anything like that. It was a lot of fun.
What do you have here at your table?
So today I have the book, obviously, and I have some stickers for the series, and I have some prints. The book is pretty much available anywhere. Any bookstore can order it. You just gotta ask for it. Ask for Shonen Punks. And that's pretty much what I got here.
That's great. So, for the people unaware of your book or your career, how would you describe Shonen Punk's plot? How would you say
So it is about a really bummed out Zennial. He works in a comic shop, and it's a comic shop / record store. It's his own store. He's all, you can tell he's just miserable. Classic Clerks vibe, you know? And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, he has two younger siblings who are the second best mad scientists in all the universe, and they always are just causing problems. And one day they bring home a robot girl for him to keep him company, so he'll stop being a loser and become a pillar of the community. And it doesn't go that way, and things just keep escalating. The people that they sold the robot from to begin with start coming to try to take it back. And after that, things escalate. Whole other dimensions happen, and next thing you know, they're stuck in another dimension. They have to wait to get back home, and they make the best of what they can.
That's great. What inspired your characterization? All these characters are really unique, and they all interact with each other in such a special way. What inspired them?
So, a lot of it is inspired by a lot of the anime that I grew up watching. Stuff like Tenchi Muyo, a lot of what they call, I guess, like ensemble graphics, like big groups. And that taught me how to write groups. But a lot of the characters were based on family members. So I always made it a point to involve my family, and I make sure they read it whether they wanted to or not. And I just think it makes it funner that way, you know, like to keep everybody involved, and it makes it easier to write different personalities when you're surrounded by one crazy personalities.
How does your journey with comics start? Going back, how did your journey into becoming a fan of comics, reading comics, all the way to being here today, here to publicize your first book?
Comics, for me, started because of my dad. And it's kind of random. So there used to be a department store called Newberry Comics, and they used to get little grab bags of random comics, probably stuff they were returned at the time, and got it for like $1.25. Got me some. I had like Batman, and had some random stuff. But there was one specific one, which was by the same company that made Ninja Turtles, randomly enough, and it was a space comic. And when I looked at it, it was weird, it was quirky, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. And that's how the comic book bit me, you know. That's how the comic book bit me. And then down the line, you know, as me growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was there when the whole anime thing started exploding. Got into like the early years stuff like Denji, and the pre-Toonami and Toonami era, which people know of after Toonami era, obviously. For me, it was just cable anime. And that just really, that pulled me in, and it made me realize that's what I wanted to do.
One thing that I find especially unique about Shonen Punks is the way you pull from so many different inspirations in the style, the things that you pay homage to. Pulling cues from anime and action and sci-fi, adventure, all while doing it humorously, including humor. But one thing in particular is that there are a lot of homages to punk rock music.
Oh, yeah.
So how does punk rock tie to a manga and comics read?
So for me, growing up, manga and anime were very niche, very subculture, and you used to see a lot of times a lot of punk albums, a lot of alternative rock albums in the '90s would use a lot of anime and manga imagery in their stuff. You know, even a lot of the '90s stuff had that, and to me, those things just always went hand in hand. You know, like when you thought of alternative scene, you thought of all the independent comics or the underground comics, like they're used to be called more frequently. And to me, that's what I grew up on, and that's what I did. I put all the things that I love, all the music that inspired my life and my art and everything. So, yes, everybody has band shirts. Yes, every title for the chapter is named after a song or an album of some punk band or another.
If you had to pick a soundtrack for Shonen Punks, what songs or bands would be on that soundtrack?
Well, funny you should say that. There's definitely a Shonen Punks Volume 1 Vibe playlist on YouTube, which I collected everything, but off the top of my head, definitely Green Day. Like, you know, definitely stuff off of like Yuki or Kerplunk, you know. The Used, specifically Taste of Ink. I mean, that song, bro. Still gives me chills. A lot of Riot Girl stuff, you know, because that's the stuff that I feel matches these girls' personalities in the comic. They're very think for themselves type, you know, like they're not following whatever anybody else is saying. So I would say like Bikini Kill, No Effects, specifically for the whole skate punk '90s vibe. If it was on Fat Wreck, it probably would go perfectly with this.
Yeah, if you know, considering that punk is an ideology and a whole culture within itself, how would you say the culture and the ideology shaped the way you tell the story, shaped the way the characters act or think, and how do you think the whole ideology influenced just everything in the book?
Okay, so growing up with the whole skate punk era, you know, mid '90s, that was my era of punk, and we weren't as politically charged as say the '80s or even nowadays stuff, but it was definitely a vibe. It was like the whole slacker vibe, and that had a big influence on the characters that I wrote and the world that I created. I mean, you look at the main character for Shonen Punks, he has that complete vibe. Like, he's still not wanting to do nothing. I mean, he has his own shop, yet he's not happy. Still wants to complain over what? Get mad at his own bosses himself?
Yeah.
And I feel that that was the vibe, you know, like the whole slacker generation. We really don't call it that anymore. But, you know, that was what it was.
Considering we talked about all these different things that you pull from and that you try to emulate within your stories, when it comes to putting together it all and telling a story, how exactly does your process go with that? With telling the story, like a plot?
So, the way I write is different. So, I'll write like, I don't want to say story, but I'll write like a basic outline for what I want a whole story arc to be. And it's just a rough idea. Like, let's say I want certain events to happen or a certain plot point to happen. Then I'll break that down individually and nothing like spread out. Just like, okay, in the first chapter, this has to happen, so this can carry on to reach point, whatever. And I just start drawing. I have it in my head. It's like I'm not working with no one else. I know what I want. So I just keep it loose because let's say I change my mind. But I do write down important dialogue or like quirky one-liners I come up with or comic things or stuff like that, and then I take it from there. I kind of let it just flow organically.
In terms of the drawings and the art styles, what are your biggest influences visually?
Okay, so my biggest influences visually is definitely the American comic artist Adam Warren. He was one of the original pioneers of the early American manga styles of the late 80s, early 90s. But aside from that, I would say, you know, stuff like Scott Pilgrim definitely influenced me later, and definitely Tankro. Tankro, I first got into when I was 14, and Tankro was pretty much my basis for a lot of my first female characters I wrote. I mean, first getting into punk, and you find Tankro, and nothing can beat that. It's the greatest. Goes together so good. like good sex.
In terms of your art style, how did you become interested in drawing and in art in general?
So as a kid, you always want to draw. You do the whole thing. You trace over pictures, you do stuff like that. But I don't think it wasn't until I started seeing when comic art started getting really dynamic, really wild, and that's when I realized, oh, I want to try to do stuff like that. I want to do that, and you just start trying to push the envelope further and further to the point where you're kind of how do I explain it? So it's kind of like with music. You hear that band's riff, right, or whatever it is you play, and you're like, I want to do that. That sparked something. You didn't feel nothing, but that made you feel something. That's what art was for me. Something finally did hit. I was like, oh, that's what I want.
Yeah. What life events or what inspired you or gave you the realization that you wanted to do comics and art professionally?
Oh, well, I also kind of just played around, did it for fun, mostly hobby stuff. I definitely had a bit of imposter syndrome. You don't look at yourself at that level until somebody kind of tells you, this is actually kind of cool. People started paying attention and started including me in a lot of the indie circles without me considering myself like that. Made me think maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm there and I just don't see it. So after talking to a few people, some of my family too, and talked to my brother Jonathan about it, and he's like, pushed me always, and so did the rest of my family, and they were encouraging, and I thought, why not just go in? And here I am, all in. Never thought I'd be.
What were some of the first comics or some of the first stories that you first started to tell when you were coming into your own with comic creation?
So the first stuff that I wrote were, it was the original version of Shonen Punk, because Shonen Punk is actually a reboot of the very first webcomic I ever did in 2004. And that one was pretty cringe. It was a lot of, I guess what we would now consider millennial brain rot. And that was a lot of what I wrote. I wrote a lot of the early weeb humor stuff and stuff that were definitely getting canceled nowadays. But it was fun, it was random, it was wild, and it was pure adrenaline. Pure adrenaline. That's what my earliest stuff was. And there's no going back, I can't take it away.
Yeah.
It's part of my DNA now, my writing DNA now. So I can try to keep it wild, keep it crazy.
Was there ever a point in your career when you started to feel like maybe it wasn't panning out what I thought it was going to be? Maybe you had possibly considered giving up?
So I walked away for a few years. I did. I walked away from comics in general for about 5 or 6 years. It was just, things got out of control. Life happened. And my art suffered for it, and I got worse because I was in a bad place. And once I got over that, I was able to get in a good place. And I had my family, and they pushed me even more. And then once my nieces and nephews started getting into drawing their own little things and seeing them involved, me kept me on track. And there was definitely that moment where I felt like, what am I doing? And it took a while for me to get that feel for it again.
So you would say that it was mainly your family that kept you going through it?
Oh, always, because they were definitely my support group. They've always supported me in everything I do. They're with me at every event I do. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better family.
What does being here today at a comic shop, doing your first ever signing, what does that mean to you?
So it's interesting for me. So I've always heard of these things happening. People doing signings, never went to any. And the comic shops while I was growing up couldn't do that. Definitely ticking a box, and now I kind of feel like, well, I'm doing it. I'm in a comic shop, doing signing, eating greens the whole bit. Never would have thought I'd be here. Took me a while, but I'm doing it.
If your younger self had seen you right now, what would he think?
Oh man, I don't think he'd believe it. He'd probably think I'm better than I am, but I mean, it's different. But I think he'd be proud. I think that maybe we'll give him a little hope that he definitely didn't have back then.
Is there anything specific that you would say to yourself? Got a one-on-one talk?
Dang, that's a deep one, bro. Okay, so yeah, I would. I'd tell him like, bro, put that bottle down. You need it. Because let's face it, that stops a lot of people, a lot of writers, a lot of artists, and I would just say, don't stop believing, bro. Don't quit. Never quit.
That's a great message. Now, going back to Shonen Punks and where we are today, let's look forward. Is this the beginning of a series? Do you have more installments planned? Do you have greater visions for the future of this franchise?
So Shonen Punks is currently an ongoing webcomic at shonenpunks.com. It just started up last year, and so every year you can look forward to a new release as I continue to move this forward. I have no ending in sight, and I plan to keep going as long as I can until it writes itself. Done.
Do you have any hints about what may be coming next or soon?
Okay, so what I will say is that things get more wild, things get worse for Chi, and better for everybody else. Because the girls love chaos and he doesn't. So what makes them happy definitely doesn't make him happy. But hey, that's life.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Where do you see this project in 5 years?
Ooh. Hopefully still doing it, and maybe into more people's hands. I would love people to actually read this and enjoy this and see what fun it is and how fun it is to be to make comics. Not everything has to be dark and grim and super over gritty. I mean, you can just have fun.
If there's one thing you're trying to evoke from the reader, or have one detail that specifically sits with them, with coming after reading the book, what would be the one thing that you should hope that fans would remember about your book?
Don't be afraid of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Just embrace it. Give it a nice hug. Invite it in. Give it a meal. Because if you try to struggle, you try to fight it, you'll be miserable like Chi.
Mm-hmm. Going with that, talking about messages, we'll have our last question here. If you had one thing to say to anyone who is sitting there with a creative idea, with no means of really being able to fully realize it, what would you tell to someone who is afraid to start pursuing their passions?
Don't be afraid. Don't worry if you're not good enough. Don't worry if there are people who you think are better than you. I promise you there's always going to be someone who sees your stuff and thinks, wow, this is amazing. And if it isn't amazing, well, guess what? Keep doing it and you'll get amazing. Like, I didn't learn how to suck overnight.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I didn't learn how to suck overnight, and neither will you.
Alright, that is great. Thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure to be here. What do you have here?
Oh, so this is my business card. Business card. This has a QR card in the back, which you guys cannot see. But hey, I will direct you to it. But you can find any of my information also on shonenpunks.com, like I said, or also powerwavecomics.com, which is my imprint. And find me. You can find me also on Instagram as Andy Draws with a Z. So yeah.
Awesome. Let's take maybe a few questions from anybody online. If anybody online has any questions they'd like to ask. Dino Rhino says this is awesome.
Thank you, Dino Rhino.
Let's see. Anybody else? Anybody else on the live want to say anything or have any comments? Who's your favorite character?
Oh, Ava, 100%.
We heard that, Ava. Any other questions? Anybody want to ask anything? Let's see. Oh, Bad Wolf Beth has number one. Is it hearts? Likes?
All right, there we go.
Mm-hmm. Who's the hardest to draw?
Ooh, hardest to draw. Chi, because he's boring. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'd say Chi because his hair's weird. I don't know how to explain it, but it's weird to draw. The girls are really easy because they're all happy. Now, if they're miserable, it probably wouldn't be that fun.
Bad Wolf Beth says, any secrets to tell for upcoming chapters?
Chaos. No, I'm just kidding. Upcoming chapters, you can expect to see some giant robots. I guarantee you that.
Ooh, we love a good giant robot. Any other questions? Anyone on the live? Let's see if we got anything else. No? Okay. Okay, so then we're going to end the live. Bye, everybody, and make sure to follow.
Thank you for all of those who have tuned in, and special thanks to the good people here at the Comic Stronghold in Oceanside, California, for giving Andrew the opportunity to be here today and for me to interview him.
Awesome. Bye, guys.
You sounded really good.